The top stories tonight in Y News. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. pushes for the finalization of the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea. A group of poultry producers complain over the increasing chicken importation in the country. Senate Minority Leader Aquilino Coco Pimentel wants to scrap the office of the Vice President's confidential fund. And U.S. President Joe Biden seeks no conflict with Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in his upcoming bilateral meeting on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Bali, Indonesia. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Monday, the 14th of November, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media channels. I am William Theo. First in the news, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has arrived early morning after meeting with several world leaders in the 40th and 41st Association of Southeast Asian Nation Summits and related summits in Cambodia. During the ASEAN, President Marcos pushed for the finalization of the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea. Nel Maribuhok reports.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said on Sunday there is still no progress on Southeast Asian leaders' attempts to finalize a code of conduct in the South China Sea, which will determine the only allowable actions countries can take in the disputed waters.
Nothing actually has happened in terms of the code of conduct. We all just restated over and over again. Kailangan na magkaroon ng code of conduct.
The Philippines and many other nations have in the past been calling on China to adhere to the 2002 Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea. President Marcos said the code must be finalized to ensure stability in Southeast Asia and avoid conflict and misunderstanding.
Ulit-ulit ang sinabi ko, it is urgent. It is becoming more and more urgent. And really should the negotiations and the finalization of the code of conduct. There's been some progress in the past year, but we really need to have the actual code of conduct be finalized and already in place as soon as possible.
Aside from China and the Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Taiwan have also claims in the South China Sea. PBBM said ASEAN member countries and China agreed that everyone must follow the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and international law. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives approved on third and final reading a bill seeking an on-site relocation of informal settlers and a bill imposing value-added tax on digital transactions in the country. With votes 254, the House approved House Bill number 5, which mandates on-site in-city or off-city relocation of informal settlers. Under the said bill, the government should provide resettlement sites to informal settlers that would also give them opportunities to find employment and livelihood. Meanwhile, House Bill number 4122 seeks a 12% value-added tax to be imposed on non-resident digital service providers such as Netflix and Spotify. Lawmakers said this will generate around 19 billion pesos of revenue. Senate Minority Leader Aquilino Coco Pimentel will move for the deletion of the office of the Vice President's confidential fund. In today's Senate budget plenary debates, the senator questioned the 500 million peso confidential fund, noting that this could be better used for other agencies that are in need of additional funding. However, Senate Finance Committee Chairperson Sani Angara disagreed with this, saying that the Vice President and her office as an institution should be supported.
At the proper time, I will move for the deletion of the confidential funds for the Office of the Vice President. Kasi po, marami tayong marami tayong natutunan last week For example, si Phil Post. Ay, nandito nalala ko si Senator Tolentino po, ang chairman ng subcommittee. Phil Post needs, if I'm not mistaken, roughly the same amount. Not more than 500 million. So, and then, hindi po namin masolusyonan nung time na yon last week kung saan kukunin yung halaga to save Phil Post to reimburse Phil Post for the expenses on franking privileges. So yun po, marami tayong natutunan nalaman last week na nangangailangan po ng funding, and nandito naman po pala may mga confidential funds na pwede namang i-let go. Actually, ang position ko po, pagbasahin natin yung definition ng confidential funds, hindi nga justifiable. Cannot be justified to be lodged under the office of the Vice President.
I would not agree, Your Honor, because I think although PhilPost may have a need, I think maybe we should look for other sources and not prejudice the office of the Vice President. As the second highest official of the land, who deserves support, our support. We should want her to succeed, irrespective of whether we agree or that person. It's the institution we're trying to uphold, Your Honor.
The Senate later on approved the OVP's its proposed 2.3 billion peso budget for next year. Despite this, Pimentel said he will move for the scrapping of the confidential fund of the OVP and the Office of the President during the period of adjustments. In other news, Transportation Secretary Jaime Bautista announced the appointment of Attorney Jose R. Togade as the new chief of the Land Transportation Office. According to Secretary Bautista, President Marcos understood the situation that Togade is better suited to the LTO. Secretary Bautista also said Attorney Togade could make a difference in the agency amid many problems and controversies it faced. Attorney Togade is the youngest son of former Transportation Secretary Arthur Togade, who has served under the Duterte administration. He was recently appointed as the acting general manager of the Manila International Airport Authority. Meanwhile, Assistant Secretary Teofilo Guadis III, whom he will be replacing, will take on the position of ASEC in the road sector. And a group of poultry producers call on the government to take a look on the supply situation of chicken in the country. One of their concerns is the impact of importation on local production. Ray Pelayo tells us why.
The prevailing retail price of chicken in Metro Manila markets is now at 180 pesos per kilogram based on the price monitoring of the Department of Agriculture. But the president of the United Broiler Raisers Association, or UBRA, Attorney Bong Inchong, complains that selling of chicken now is low due to the oversupply. He noted that the inventory of frozen chicken is around 52 million kilos. Inchong said that the importation also affects the local production.
So ngayon, maraming supply dahil maraming production, marami rin yung imported, kaya hindi nga lang nararamdaman yan sa palengke.
But the Chairman Emeritus of the Meat Importers and Traders Association, Jess Cham, said that they incur losses due to the high cost and delay of importation. He noted that only around 20% of the total chicken supply is imported and about 20 to 30% lower than the local produced price.
Ang imported product still nagbibigay ng option sa mga mamimili na kumain ng manok na mas affordable.
UBRA calls on the Agriculture Department to revive the group that monitors the supply and prices of chicken.
Ibuhayin ulit yung task force price and volume batch para maliwanag kung ilan ba ang more or less may estimate sa production, more or less may estimate sa importation, katapos magkaroon ng pakiramdaman yung mga presyo.
UNTV is waiting for the statement of the Department of Agriculture on the matter. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
President Joko Widodo of Indonesia launched the G20 Pandemic Fund and is seeking more funds as the money raised so far is not yet sufficient. Joselito Liquido explains why. Live. Yes, Joselito?
Good evening, Elsie. The G20 Pandemic Fund launched by Indonesia's President Joko Widodo aims to improve pandemic preparedness, especially for low-income countries, through surveillance, research, and better access to vaccines, among others. Currently, only $1.4 billion was raised by the G20 Pandemic Fund, which includes contribution from Indonesia, the United States, and the European Union, including donations from philanthropic organizations. However, estimates from the World Bank and World Health Organization state that at least $10.5 billion is still needed annually to ensure pandemic preparedness. Leaders from the world's largest economies are set to meet in the tourism capital of Indonesia, the island of Bali, from November 15 to 16 to discuss cooperation to build a more stable future. Being the chairman of the summit, President Widodo sees this meeting as an opportunity for the world's biggest powers to set aside differences and instead focus on addressing the crisis the world is facing, including the COVID-19 pandemic, possible economic recessions, and sustainable development. Meanwhile, Indonesia's finance ministers expects additional contributions from other countries such as France and Saudi Arabia, and also called for other countries' proposal looking to access the funds. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Joselito Liquido, reporting live from Malaysia. U.S. President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping are set to meet face-to-face for the first time since Biden took his office on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Bali, Indonesia. A White House official said on Sunday that the president, while aboard Air Force One, will make clear in his bilateral meeting that his country seeks no conflict and that he sees the U.S. and China as being engaged in a stiff competition, but that competition should not tip over into conflict or confrontation. He also said Biden would be straightforward and direct in his conversation with Xi, continuing an approach he has pursued from the beginning of his presidency. He said the administration was not seeking to reset the relationship despite various issues and flashpoints that had emerged. Jake Sullivan, a national security advisor to Biden, said the meeting could last a couple of hours. We'll share more global stories with you later, but for now, back to you, William.
Yes, thank you, Elsie. The prevailing retail price of red onion in Metro Manila markets now reached 280 pesos per kilogram based on the price monitoring of the Department of Agriculture, or DA. This is 30 pesos higher compared to its price last Friday and 110 pesos higher compared to the suggested retail price set by the DA. The department is yet to decide if the country will import additional supply. But the Philippine Chamber of Agriculture and Food Incorporated noted the local farmers will be affected if the government will allow the importation on December. The group expects the start of harvest season next month. Over 56 billion pesos were allocated for the grant of the year-end bonus for qualified regular government employees in the country, according to the Department of Management. Janice Inhente tells us why.
The Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, confirmed that qualified government employees are set to receive their year-end and cash gift bonus beginning tomorrow, November 15. A total of 56,733,480,000 pesos has been allocated for the grant of the said bonus for qualified civilian, military, and uniformed personnel in different national government agencies. On the other hand, under the fiscal year 2022 General Appropriations Act, the total appropriations for the grant of the cash gifts is 8,619,540,000 pesos. According to Civil Service Commissioner Attorney Eileen Lizada, around 1.7 million government employees will receive year-end bonus and 5,000 cash gift.
More or less 1.7 million government employees ay makakatanggap ng year-end bonus plus cash gift. Ang matatanggap ng isang empleyado ng gobyerno ay yung 1-month salary nila and the plus the 5,000 cash gift subject to tax.
The rules and regulations on the grant of the year-end bonus and cash gift are provided under DBM Budget Circular Number 2016-4 dated April 28, 2016, which specify that personnel must have rendered at least a total or an aggregate of 4 months of service from January 1 to October 31 of the current year, and personnel remains to be in the government service as of October 31 of the same year. Year-end bonus is equivalent to 1 month basic pay as of October 31, and the cash gift of 5,000 shall be given to qualified government personnel not earlier than November 15 of the current year. Janice Enhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The House of Representatives has approved on third and final reading a bill imposing an excise tax on single-use plastic bags. Meanwhile, in a House committee hearing, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or DENR, is currently reviewing on banning or regulating more single-use plastics. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
Plastics not only pollute the environment but also are a health hazard to individuals. According to lawmakers, House Bill number 4102, or the Plastic Bag Tax Act, aims to encourage the public to use an alternative to plastic. Plastic pollution poses a major threat to the environment, especially in marine life. The Philippines rank third in the highest contributors of marine waste in the world, with more than 750,000 tons of plastics entering the ocean annually. Under the said bill, 100 peso tax will be imposed on every kilo of single-use plastic bags. This will be increased by 4% every year starting on January 1, 2026. Revenues from the tax will be used to fund programs of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources for the implementation of the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000. Meanwhile, during a House committee hearing, the DENR is currently reviewing on regulating or banning more single-use plastics. Currently, the use of plastic stirrers and straws are no longer allowed.
We have also lined up plastic utensils and other single-use plastic is now still for review under the life cycle analysis.
According to the DENR Environmental Management Bureau, their goal is to have a zero marine litter by 2040. Other strategies include waste-to-energy program to decrease the waste generation rate of the country.
It has been developed to serve as a blueprint or to enhance the current efforts of the country in resource and waste management, and to bring additional lens to marine litter issues and the control of additional leakage of waste into bodies of water.
Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God. Japan and South Korea have expressed their interest in finding a solution to the unresolved wartime labor issues, which have been ongoing since the Second World War. Marvy Delphine will tell us why live. Marvy?
Elsie, while political tensions have increased in recent years, Japan and South Korea agreed to find a solution towards the unresolved compensation for Japan's use of Korean wartime laborers during the Second World War. Both Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and President Yoon Suk-yeol of South Korea, who took office in May, have expressed their hopes of meeting towards a swift solution. The South Korean government took a hold of assets owned by some Japanese companies alleged of failing to provide compensation for the wartime laborers. In response, Japan stated that a compensation was settled with the 1965 treaty, which agreed to support South Korea financially. Because of this, they have issued a warning if South Korea proceeded with taking orders. After Japan urged South Korea to further present a solution, South Korea says it will come up with a proposal that would win the consent of both victims from South Korea and Tokyo. Aside from this, LC, just last week, the two nations had a three-way meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden, discussing concerns regarding North Korea's planned nuclear test. Being North Korea's seventh nuclear test, the three nations agreed to a collaborative response as the test violates United Nations safety and security protocols. LC?
Thank you, Marvi Dolphin, reporting live from Australia. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and the country's delegates at the 2022 Climate Change Summit are rallying international support to drive Russia out of the country. Mavian Dog details why live. Maeve?
LC, the 2022 United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP27, being held at Egypt this month, addressed the destruction of protected areas in Ukraine and the current toll of the Russian invasion. 24 Ukrainian officials were dispatched to the conference to describe the links between Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the environmental catastrophe that currently occurs globally. In a video addressed to the conference participants in Egypt, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky rallied international support to help drive Russia out of the country.
There can be no effective climate policy without the peace on the earth, because in fact nations are thinking only about how to protect themselves here and now from the threats created in particular by the Russian aggression. Russia needs to shut the guns and hide its missiles so the world finally hears what we can all really do together to save ourselves from the climate disaster.
Ukraine's Assistant Environmental Minister Svetlana Hrinchuk called the war a state of terrorism and an ecocide. She explained that heavy shelling and the movement of troops and tanks have killed wildlife, polluted the air, and caused social instability, all while they continue to send more missiles to Ukraine's power plants. LC, a fifth of Ukraine's protected areas have been destroyed by the war, with the contamination of fertile soils costing 11.4 billion euros in damages. LC?
Thank you, Mavian Dog, reporting live from Australia. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Elsie Marcos, live from Auckland, New Zealand. Good evening.
The Maynilad Water Services Incorporated, or Maynilad, has announced a water interruption for network maintenance from November 14 to 17. The company said the network maintenance activities is part of their efforts to improve water services in the West Zone. The affected areas include Barangay Daanghari in Navotas City in Caloocan City. The affected areas include Barangay North Bay Boulevard, South Barangays 112, 112 to 126, and Pag-ibig sa Nayon, Barangays 110 to 116, Barangay 151, and Barangays 28 and 31. In Quezon City, affected areas are Barangay Nova Proper, Barangay Baisa, and Barangay Paltok. The company advised the affected customers to store enough water for the water interruption. However, they would water tankers on standby to deliver water to affected areas as needed. Maynilad added that upon resumption of the water service, people should let the water flow out for a few seconds to ensure clear water can be used. In other news, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. plans the provision of the 206.50 billion pesos for subsidies and cash aid as part of the proposed 2023 national budget to support affected sectors amid surging commodity prices brought about by global inflation. Marikina City Representative Stella Kimbo, in a statement, welcomed this development and stressed the government's planned expansion of ayuda programs would further boost the economic turnaround of the country as the gross domestic product, or GDP, increases in the third quarter. She also added that the best defense against global inflation is domestic output expansion. Kimbo cited the need to consider the expansion of government fuel and fertilizer subsidies to boost agricultural production, as this program effectively supports local producers. She noted that providing assistance to affected sectors is one way to boost spending that will later on help the economy. There is a need to improve the productivity of the domestic agricultural sector and invigorate industries to reduce the country's exposure to volatile global prices and global supply shocks. Our kasangbahay, as the world faces these trying times amid the pandemic caused by coronavirus, we are inviting everyone to join the global prayer for humanity.
Good day. I'm Brother Eli Soriano of the members of the Church of God International. I want to invite you to join us in a minute of prayer every day to pray for humanity and the whole world as we go through these perilous times. While safety measures like washing of hands and strengthening of our immune systems may help us through this horrible predicament, there is still no precaution or cure more powerful than God's mighty intervention. And we need His intervention now more than ever. It doesn't matter what religion you are in or what denomination you belong. This is an invitation for all the people around the world who cares for the future of their family, friends, loved ones, and humanity as a whole. Everybody is welcome to pray with us. For more details, you can check out the description box below. Thank you very much, and I hope to hear from you soon. May God bless you.
And before we close, we will leave you with the word, giving glory to God, from the book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 9. It says, "O fear the Lord, ye his saints, for there is no want to them that fear him." And those are the reasons behind the news, November 14, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.